Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Hump with Katie. I'm your host, Katie Thiroux, and today I have an amazing non-bassist episode for you with the incredibly talented saxophonist, composer, chair of the woodwind department at Berklee College of Music, and all-around funny person, Walter Smith III. If you're new to The Hump, this is a series where I interview some of the world's most talented artists and musicians and find out why are they so amazing, how did it all happen, and ultimately what can we learn from their journey. You can find all of these episodes and more on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and you can go watch them on YouTube, so go like, subscribe, download, leave a comment, and let me know who you want to hear from next. Before I bring you today's amazing episode, I'd love to thank our sponsors, and first up we have the clothing company Jams World. You guys, I absolutely love Jams World. I'm wearing a Jams World right now, of course, and the reason why I love it is because the fabric is made from 100% spun crushed rayon, and it keeps me cool and comfortable. They've been making clothing in Honolulu, Hawaii since 1964, and the artwork is so unique. It's screen printed right onto the fabric, and it looks like a piece of art. Go to jamsworld.com and use the promo code JAZZ15, and you'll get 15% off your entire online purchase. Next up, I'd like to thank Colstein's String Shop. I absolutely love Colstein's. They are doing amazing things for the bass community. They have 2 amazing locations in Long Island, New York, and a killer online store. Go to colstein.com and use the promo code KD10, and you'll get 10% off your entire purchase. All right, I'm ready to bring you today's episode with Walter Smith III. Now, you know someone has to be special to be on The Hump if they're not a bass player, and Walter is special. He comes from a long lineage history of jazz musicians from Houston, Texas, and if you've ever heard him or seen him before, you just know how wonderful of a musician he is. His true spirit comes out in the music. If you're at all familiar with Walter on social media, he has kept us entertained and occupied throughout the pandemic, just posting the most hilarious videos with beautiful music that he's done all the arrangements for, with a lot of juxtaposition. So go check that out. Of course, I'll put links below. This was such a fun conversation, and Walter is one of those people that is an incredible performer and musician, and equally talented as an educator, and I got to dig a little bit deeper to find out what the root of that was and why and how it all came to be. You're really going to enjoy this interview. Walter is such a funny person, and that's kind of key to his way of life, it seems like. So without further ado, here is Walter Smith III.
What's up?
Hey, Walter.
How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Of course, of course. You can hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine. Let me make sure this is just... Great. Cool. Are you in Boston?
I am. Yes.
Don't worry, I'm not going to give your exact coordinates.
Perfect. Perfect. They can't find me.
Yeah. I was going to make a joke. I'm not going to make a joke.
Go for it. I'm up for it.
Yeah. Hey, we'll just get right into it. Tell me about your childhood. No, I'm kidding. No, thanks for taking the time. This is all about bass players, but every once in a while I sprinkle in a non-bassist because it's important. You guys matter too.
Right.
Well, I'm a huge fan of yours, Walter, both musically and just socially as a person. You're very you just are, which I love, because that's how I like to be myself. That's what I strive to do. But I will start at the beginning, because I would like to know why you are who you are. So, I mean, of course I did a little bit of digging, but I don't want to do it like that. But you're from Houston.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And how did music come into your life?
I think kind of the same with everyone in Houston. It's everywhere, or at least at that time. We had a really strong band program, so I started in kindergarten, so at age 4. Full, arts, drama, art, music, the whole thing. So I started on violin in kindergarten, and then actually my father was a band director at the school that I went to. So he started me on clarinet in 1st grade, and then I switched to saxophone in 2nd grade. And then it was just from there, just always been playing.
Was there a rub having your dad being a band director?
Yeah, because I feel like there was always like that. Most people that have children that try to teach them whatever it is that they do, I know there's always kind of a thing, because they're wanting you to be pushed in a way that maybe you're not interested in. So
Yeah.
I don't think I shared a real interest in music, other than it was just something to do in school. But I think there was, a little expectation of like, well, we're going to get you private lessons, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And it started really early, when I was doing it, but it wasn't like I was in love with it. That's for sure.
Yeah. I didn't mean to crack a nut or anything. My mom was a director too.
Okay, there you go. Yeah,
Yeah.
so you know the vibe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. The Survivors Club. Um,
exactly.
yeah, it's the expectation. So when you got to the saxophone, was that when, I mean, even at a young age, was it just kind of like, oh, wow, I love this thing. I want to practice. Like, were you like a kid that liked to practice?
I think not early on, but I think somewhere around fourth or fifth grade, it was, how it is where you just are doing something, and then I remember all city band, which was like the elementary school thing, and I got maybe, I don't remember if it was first chair. I don't want to lie, but let's just say for sake of the conversation, I was first chair all city elementary school, which was like one of those moments, and I feel like that's kind of been a defining thing for me along the way, where it's like you get into something and then it's like, oh wow, really, me? Okay, cool, well then let's keep going. So when that happened, I started doing more. I remember wearing out the Charlie Parker book, somewhere between fifth and seventh grade. Like it was like all the time, trying to figure it out, trying to
Yeah.
memorize stuff so that I could play it in solo, all that kind of stuff. It became that kind of thing.
Yeah, and you had a place where you could go like work on what you were shedding. Like you had other kids around you that were like trying to do that as well.
Uh, I guess when I got to middle school, and then there was a summer program that I was involved in, and I don't remember when I started, maybe fifth grade. It was called the Summer Jazz Workshop, and it was like all the busy professionals in town got together and put together this summer thing. So they would have like all the kids from all the different schools, all various age groups, um, and like so a big band, if you can imagine, with like 65 alto saxophones, a tenor and a bari, and then like 50 trumpets, and like that kind of
Yeah.
thing, all playing unison, blue bossa. But it was like amazing, and they had classes on music business, improvisation,
Mm.
composition, like all that kind of stuff. It was 5 weeks, I think, during the summer, and then we'd go play concerts. So yeah, there was a lot of stuff, and then they would bring back alumni. So like I remember being in middle school, maybe doing that, and Eric Harlan came in the summer from New York, and they were all like, oh yeah, Eric Harlan is here, oh watch him play. And then he, it was like there are all those kind of things that happen. So we could see people that had there and were doing stuff
Mm.
that was, they're in New York and all that kind of stuff, and it was just it was just exciting in a way.
Yeah, it's so amazing though, those experiences you have early on, how they shape you and help you later. And you
Yeah,
don't really, of course, you don't realize it as a kid. We're not really grateful for a lot of things growing up, but
right. No, for
yeah,
none of it.
yeah, yeah, that's great. Does that kind of still exist in Houston? That kind of culture?
To the best of my knowledge, it does. I was down there last year, and I went by the Performing Arts High School, and there were a lot of musicians there that were incredible. It just seems to kind of keep churning people out.
There's
And
definitely
that
a history
workshop,
there.
there is, and that workshop is still going too. They expanded it. They started having multiple locations of it, so it's still going strong.
Yeah, I always equate it to. I mean, I love sports, but it's like when you play sports as a kid, baseball, it's like you're playing with kids your age. You're not playing with like old people. And a
Right.
lot of time growing up when you're playing jazz, most people are older. So it's nice when you get together and you're all trying to figure this out, around the same age
Yeah.
group.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. Although it would be funny to see like Major League Baseball, like little kids and old people.
See, that's something I would really be into.
Yeah, I don't mean to say old people because, jazz musicians, you refer to them as masters, but could you imagine, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd like that. Um, so, I mean, obviously you excelled in your high school career, and you did all the stuff, you know, the NFAA and all those things, and you're working hard, and then you went to Berklee,
I did.
which is a nice
Yeah,
full circle.
I know. Yeah, it is something I didn't see coming, but yeah, it is. Yeah, I applied for all the schools. The people that I was in high school with, a year ahead of us in school, Robert Glasper and Mike Moreno, had gone to the new school, and they were there. And I remember they would come back and they had their tapes from their combo, and it was like Marcus Strickland and Casey Benjamin and all these people. And we were just like, wow, Bilal, you know, it was like incredible. So I really wanted to go to New York, but I also really wanted to do a music ed degree. And that wasn't possible anywhere that had kind of like a serious playing thing on the East Coast and was on the East Coast, I guess. And Berklee was the spot for that. And it ended up working out to go there. So,
and before you went to Berklee, did you know you wanted to teach, or did you like teaching, or like why were you interested in it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to what we started talking about. Like that was what my dad did. Then it was like those summer programs where all the people that were in Houston led those things. So like they would be with us during the day, and then they would be like, oh, we're playing tonight here, we're playing here. You know, it just always seemed like kind of the coolest situation where you were kind of like involved with working with young people, but also like playing all the time. And, you know, it was still abstract when I was like, I want to do a music ed degree.
Yeah.
But because it wasn't, I guess I'd also say that my goal with doing it, if there was a college education degree, that's what I would have done, but that doesn't exist. So it was important to me to not just kind of start trying to be a teacher, but to actually know some of the method behind it, how to organize a syllabus, how to organize and pace a lesson, you know, all that kind of stuff that there's no college version of that. And it's a very strange thing. So music ed was kind of, as far as I could see, the clearest route to doing that.
Oh, that's very thoughtful at that young age to think about that so far ahead. And maybe we'll talk about this, but Berklee seems like a great place to do that because you can kind of do a lot of things there.
Yeah. Yes. So, and you know firsthand. So
yeah. Did you? Yeah. I took a lot of just for fun, just some music ed classes and all sorts of classes.
For fun?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's really great forward thinking, because I bet most people were like, man, Walter, why are you getting a music ed degree? Like you're killing it, but I like you just kind of went for it.
Yeah, because I mean, you always also hear, because you get opportunity to go to camps and you hear people say, oh, he's a great player, but he can't explain anything, which for, you know, I don't really even know that that's true, but I just remember hearing it all the time and thinking like, okay, if I actually had to tell someone how to practice this thing, I don't really know how to organize the, you know, I mean, obviously I'm not an idiot, I could figure it out, but like just something that you could apply across the board, just that made sense. So yeah, it was more out of fear of being someone that people are like, yeah, he doesn't understand what he's doing. It's just, he just does it, you know, like that kind of thing that people say.
Yeah, you'll hear it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So at Berklee, were you able to kind of have a nice balance of, of playing, like a performance, and of music ed there?
Yeah, but it was, you know, I'm sorry that my phone keeps going off. I'm turning it off now.
You're just that popular.
Telling you, yeah, they really want me to spend these Sky Miles. But
shoot, you're telling me. I'm like kind of upset right now.
Oh man. Yeah, but it wasn't in school, because music ed is kind of all consuming as far as what you have to do to get through it in a reasonable amount of time. So I felt lucky to get the opportunity to play gigs around town all the time, and to also have the opportunity to play like daily with peers. Like, you know how you could book out the ensemble rooms.
Yeah.
Like that was like the thing that I learned the most as far as playing, because it was like every night, I would say from 6 till midnight, it was like a different, every 2 hour block. I
Mm-hmm.
was in those sessions like 5, 6 days a week, all night long, like getting lost in forms,
Yeah.
not knowing songs, not knowing how to read, and coming back the next day with having practiced a little more. And then over time, um, I feel like I didn't even realize how much I was getting out of that. So
Hmm.
to answer your question, it was the outside of school stuff that I was able to work on towards performance. But in school, it was all like, you know, trombone,
Yeah.
clarinet, barbershop quartet, art history. So it wasn't all roses in terms of that, but it worked out.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I find Berkeley to be a place like you really have to make your own curriculum if you want to get something out of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Because there's a lot of places to get lost. There's so many options. So
Yeah,
yeah, you
definitely.
have to know what you want for sure.
So when you finished Berkeley, your intention wasn't like, okay, I'm gonna go get a high school band director job.
No, but I was certified K through 12 in Massachusetts
That's a tough
as
test
part of the
too.
degree. It is. It is. I got lucky and passed it first time. So
So what'd you do right after Berkeley?
so during my time at Berkeley, I'd gotten some opportunities to tour with some people. I'd been to Europe a few times. And I think I finished my student teaching was like in a fall semester. And my roommate was my guy from Houston, Scott at the time, and he was finishing his music ed degree that spring. And we both just wanted to move to New York. So the plan was, when he was done, our lease was up, let's move in the summer. So we were looking for a place. I actually had some opportunities to go to Europe during that spring. I think I went 2 or 3 times with different groups to play. And I also applied for MSM to do a master's, just because I didn't know what my move to New York would bring. Would I be
Mm-hmm.
busy? I would have nothing to do. And I got a scholarship to go there too. So it seemed like the perfect plan. So post Berkeley, moved to New York, do a master's.
And did you even have time before that to kind of have a vision of like, I want to play with these certain people? Like, did you even have goals in mind of things to do? Because it seemed like you were just like hit the floor running.
Yeah, of course. Going back to high school, I think another thing that I decided early and ended up being kind of what I've done was I always wanted to be in like Nicholas Payton's band and Terrence Blanchard's band and Roy Hargrove's band. Like I wanted to be Tim Warfield. I wanted to be
Mm.
Ron Blake, like the one that's in the band, but like it's not your thing. You're like
Mm-hmm.
interpreting that person's music. Those were like the things I was really excited about. Of course, I loved, at the time when I was in high school, we would listen a lot to Garrett or Josh Redman, all that kind of stuff too. But I saw like my interest was like, oh, I really want to be in that band. That was what I was excited about. So moving to New York, those were still my goals. I had a chance during my time at Berkeley to do actually a couple gigs with Terrence, which was incredible. Like that was also part of, I was saying making all city band
Mm-hmm.
gave me, then I started practicing more. I got that opportunity to play with Terrence, and then I started thinking like, wow, why would this is really an option?
Mm-hmm.
And then it kind of he called me again for another gig and then another one, and it kind of really just was pushing me towards that feeling of you have goals and you have things you wish would happen, and
Mm-hmm.
then if they start to happen, it's like, oh wow, okay,
Yeah.
we'll see what happens,
Yeah.
so yeah, those were still my goals moving to New York, was to be in those kind of bands.
Yeah. And it seems like you kind of had that sense of, like, okay, if Terrence is gonna call, I'm gonna be prepared, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, to some degree. I also failed miserably. One of the funny things with him. He called for one gig, and I remember subbing, and it was cool. Everything went well. The music he wanted to play, because it was at a university. It was somewhere in Mississippi. I remember it was like Aaron Park's first gig with his band, and it was more like tunes. I learned all the stuff for him, but it was very doable. The next one he called for was, I feel like he had an album called Flow,
Mm-hmm.
or I think it was that one. It might have been whatever was before that, but he FedExed a CD, like with no music, just like a rough, because the music wasn't even out yet. And I missed the FedEx and like had to go down to the actual place and like try to get this thing. And I only had like 2 days to learn it. So I got home and got the disc, and then was just going through, and all the songs were like, they were long songs, and at least to me at the time. And I was trying to figure them out, and I was just like, all right, let me just learn melodies, get these harmony parts, blah, blah, blah. And I learned all of them, but I only listened to the way in and kind of like what the solo structure was, because of time, and just like, I want to make sure I nail this stuff. And then we got there and we were in the sound check, we were playing, and like all of them, of course, are different on the way out, with like codas and different key. They go to a different key, and it's like all this stuff. So super prepared for half of the gig, and then half of it not so much. And he thought it was funny, thankfully. So he was just like, "Yeah, don't worry, I'll play the way out."
Wow.
So yeah.
So note to self: listen all the way through.
Turns out that's important.
Yeah, it's good to eat it though sometimes.
Wow. Yeah, if you've done it as much as I have, it starts to get old.
Yeah. Well, I backtrack a little bit. What was your first big gig where you had that moment like, oh wow, I'm doing this?
Maybe in high school. I think it might have been the NFAA thing. Because everything else that we'd done before that, I got to play with Kirk Whalum one time, who was like my idol for like a TV show in high school at some point. But it didn't feel like a full-on concert. But that NFAA thing, it was, at that time, IAJE was the gym of that time, and the conference was in New York. And we were playing, they have stuff all day, but then the main concerts at night, where they had, where whoever it was going to be was playing there. And we had gone to IAJE with our school the past 2 years. So I think in my 10th grade year, I went, and it was in Atlanta. And I met Kenny Garrett and Josh Redman at that. I met Stanley Turrentine. It was like mind blown, right? Next year was in Chicago. And I remember I met, Bunky Green. I remember meeting Marcus Strickland there. He had a white saxophone, which is really funny. I met a whole bunch of people at that one. And then the next year was New York. And that was the year that I was a senior and did the NFAA thing. And when we got there and walked up to the stage for the sound check, the band that was playing before us was the Warner Jams band, which I don't know if you. So it was the second version with James Moody and Mark Turner and like Larry Goldings and all that stuff. And then after them, Christian McBride's trio was playing, and it was just like just seeing them all sound check and talk to each other and all that kind of stuff. I remember walking up to Mark Turner and just being super nervous and wanting to say something to him, but not really knowing. I was like, "How old are you?" He was like, "How old are you?" And then like kind of walked off, that kind of thing. But yeah, that gig, I remember we didn't have a rhythm section that made it. It was Mike Rodriguez, the trumpet player, and a piano player, Danny Fox. So they got us a bass and drummer, and Jason Marsalis played drums, So it was crazy. It was like we were out there. There was no like, you solo here, you solo there. It was just, it felt like a gig, and there were a whole lot of people there, and there were a lot of people on the side of the stage. It just felt like, am I ready for this in any way? Not at all. But after it was done, it was kind of like, well, that wasn't, it didn't go that bad. And then people had things to say, they were encouraging. So, yeah, that was to me the first time where it felt like something had been accomplished performance wise.
Mm, that's cool. I'm pretty sure I was there as well.
Oh, really? You would have
Yeah.
been like 10 years old,
Yeah, it would
maybe?
have been 10 years ago. No, I think I was in ninth grade.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
nice.
Yeah, that was a good. I think that was the last time it might have been in New York, and then it died.
Yeah, yeah, it could that might have been the reason that it died was just because of that concert.
Yeah, man, they missed the second ending on the tune, and
Yeah, I still remember we had to play Pensativa, and like in high school there were certain keys. You could like get through some stuff,
yeah,
but G flat was not my friend at
yeah,
that time, and the bridge being an A, I just remember being like, geez, okay, cool,
yeah.
great, awesome. Try to just hold that C sharp as much as possible. And when it didn't work, just move up or down by one note.
And then just take the horn out of your mouth and go,
Exactly.
and look thoughtful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Those are the keys to getting through it.
Uh, um. Okay, so you're fast forwarding. You're back in New York. You're at MSM, and you're playing around town. What was that like? Well, I'm guessing. I'm putting words in your mouth. So you're
Yeah, yeah.
gigging around town in New York, and what was that kind of experience for you like? Was it like every night?
It wasn't playing every night, but it was being out every night and going to shows and, a lot of rehearsals, a lot of sessions with people and people that I felt I was in community with were getting opportunities. So everybody was starting to like do stuff. And, you know, it was exciting. Every time your phone would ring, it was just like, oh my God, what is this going to be? Yeah, I remember Eric Reed called me to play at Carnegie Hall one time. And I was like you know, at MSM, there was like a little restaurant where everyone would go have lunch. And I was like, let me take this call. And I went outside and the train is right there at 125th. And it was like loud. And I was like, hello? What? Who? Eric? Oh, Eric Reed? Oh, what? Who? Like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of those moments where it was pretty cool. But that's where I met Ambrose and
Mm-hmm.
started playing around with him a little bit. A lot of important people that I still play with now, I met during that time. And, you know, I was challenged a lot. Like I remember Lionel was calling me for stuff. And one time we were playing the Blue Note, like a Saturday night thing. And Aaron, I think Chick was playing the week at the
Mm-hmm.
Blue Note, and then they would have like a night concert. And we got there, and Aaron Parks was supposed to play, and the piano was like moved off. I guess it couldn't have been Chick then. Who was it? There was somebody that moved the piano
Yeah.
unexpectedly off the stage, so there was no piano, and they're like, "We're not moving it on." And I kind of was like, "Okay, I really rely on him to play that, so I know where it was, and
Yeah.
now it's not there." So, like those kind of moments where you're just not comfortable at all, and you have to make it work. But I got to play with a lot of people during that time that I felt really challenged by musically,
Mm.
and was always really inspired to like work after that. So almost each situation was like, this is what I'm doing tomorrow and for the next
Yeah.
foreseeable future. Even like with writing too. Like I started asking a lot of questions to people, and just it was just all exciting to me.
Yeah.
It felt like, yeah, you know,
Just normal, because I think the jazz history books will say in the future, like the '90s was like the hard bop resurgence, and then your generation in the, I don't know what you want to call it, the mid 2000s. Um,
mhm,
you guys have your own thing going on, like
straight A music.
yeah. Well, everyone you just mentioned, yeah, it was.
Yeah,
You guys all came up and were playing together, so maybe that's what they'll call it in the history
hmm,
books.
yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, but it kind of reminds me of like the art renaissance or something, like all those artists together, and you guys are just, that's what you were doing, making music and learning
Yeah,
from each other.
definitely. Yeah.
So when did you start composing a lot of music? Because that's something you do a lot, and I love it. You do very well. So when did that kind of
Almost.
interest you?
All along, but I really started writing when I uh, scheduled my first recording. This label that was around at that time, Fresh Sounds, was kind of, they were around town and they were getting people to do albums. A lot of people did their first record for them. And when they asked, I was like really excited. And then I decided, well, I should probably write some music for this too. And that's kind of really when I started. And it's one of those really, you know, I look back on it and listen to those songs. For the most part, I'm just like, wow, this is funny that this is, you know, that this is out there, because it literally is like the first like 5 songs I wrote in my life are there. So, you know, I think part of that was my mentality of not looking at myself as a leader and not really owning that part of how important it is to like to write, and the fact that you've been playing for this long has nothing to do with your ability to write music, and at least in my case. So there was a big disconnect, and doing that album actually really put me on a path towards intense study of writing and taking all the music from all my friends that I knew and really looking at it. Why does it work? What are the things they're doing? What are some things that I should work on? And really starting to focus on that part of, you know, what it is that we do.
Yeah, and I think even if you're a musician and you don't want to be a writer or a composer, like you're kind of saying, it is really helpful to just work through the mechanics of it and see what's happening, like what makes a song good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because it's something that you can't, to your point, you don't know until you like actually really investigate what is it about this that I like. I remember some of my plan going into it was to figure that exact thing out and then to just do it in all of the songs that I would write. Like I would have all my favorite songs laid out on the keyboard and then be like, okay, I really like this chord and that note, so I'm gonna put that here. And then, you know, it's just like a real, like I took every chord from Fall and then melody note and just rearranged them in a, you know, it was just like ridiculous. But that was, to your point, just what makes this something that I like, and what makes it work. So
yeah,
that was the move. Yeah.
What was the name of your first record? I just saw it, but I
Actually introducing
yes,
Walter Smith III.
yeah, I liked that.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was nice. That was great.
Super nice.
I want to make sure I have this right too. Were you in the Monk Institute or you won the award?
Yeah, no, I went to it after New York. So, you know, I was playing a lot. I got a chance to play with Roy Haynes when I was in New York for about a year, on and off, year and a half. And when my wife is from Los Angeles, and when we got engaged, and the plan was that, well, I have all these gigs now, I'm kind of touring, it's all this stuff happening. Why don't we move to LA? Why don't we stay in LA? And then, you know, I can just be based out of there and keep doing what I'm doing. And I remember telling that to Roy's manager and them being like, no, thank you. He wants the group to be based in New York, which was kind of a surprise. But, you know, for rehearsal or for whatever stuff was happening, just being able to fly together is a big, as you know, traveling logistically, if everyone can be in the same spot, it makes a huge difference. It's all of us missing the gig or none of us. So there were a lot of reasons behind that, but it kind of panicked me where I was like, wait a minute, you know, between that and these other, let me check on this other, and everything I was doing was kind of like, well, yeah, I don't know, it's kind of an expensive flight, and, you know, I don't know about you being out there and keeping to do this. So while I was kind of discovering all of this, which was not what I had thought was going to be the case, Ambrose and Tim Green and Joe Sanders were coming over to my apartment to record their Monk audition tapes with Ken. They were using Kendrick and using our place. We had a big place, 146 on Broadway, that had a bunch of bedrooms, and Kendrick was recording in one of them with all of them. They were all doing it, and they were like, "Dude, what are you gonna do?" I was like, "Well, I'm moving out there already." Like,
Yeah.
and they were like, "Make your tape. We'll all do it together." So I made a tape with them, a CD. I don't know if maybe it was a tape at that point still too, but and then ended up going out to LA to do the Monk Institute for the first 2 years while I was there, along with all of those guys.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
You know,
And LA is just a plane flight away. I don't know why people think so poorly upon
now,
us. Yeah.
but I feel like at that time, it also was like, um, I do feel like there's a point where people are willing to fly you out because of maybe something you're bringing that's specific, or maybe your level of achievement in the world. And then there's also a point where you're just like another person, and they're like, "Wow, no, we'll get somebody else."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that was totally where I was at that point. Things were starting to happen. It was great, but I did not have the clout to pull
Yeah.
a 5,000-mile flight. Yeah. So
Um, I'm gonna go back to LA, back to New York. When you were in New York, did you ever have like any of those moments of, how do I put this? Like, some people get lazy, and they don't have that drive, um, and then they get their butt kicked. Did that ever happen to you, or did you experience that with other people? Because it's a great place, but it can be unforgiving if you're not, willing to work really hard.
yeah, I mean, there were people that, so even going back to high school, all of our experience with music was from recordings, because Houston is not a place where a lot of people would go to play. So like I knew, like even when I was like had my mind set that I was going to move to New York, I started buying all those, that label Crisscross.
Mm-hmm.
I would just go to the store and buy those. I didn't know the people on it, but I was like, these are all the people in New York. I want to know what everybody's doing and who they are and all that stuff. There was no YouTube, none of that stuff. So when I got to New York, a lot of those people were around. Um, and some of them, to your point, were not, they were kind of like burned out on being in New York. And some of them had like become like a bigger deal. For me, I was never, I wasn't there long enough to get burned out on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's part of, like, to me, that was like the culmination of all of it. Like all the stuff I'd ever listened to, all the stuff I'd ever played, everything I'd ever learned. Now I'm in the place where it all matters, like for real,
Mm-hmm.
where people are taking note of anything you're doing, like that kind of thing. And it was, yeah, there was, it wasn't even something that crossed my mind as far as like being lazy. No, it was just like I remember landing back at JFK, coming from like a short tour or a little gig or something, and landing, and then the flight, you could turn your phone on, and I'd be like, all right, where's everybody going tonight? And then
Yeah.
like go from airport to whatever, just to go hang and see the gig and that kind of stuff. There was, it was 100%. I was all in on
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
of it. So yeah, so I wasn't lazy at all, thankfully.
Yeah. I had a feeling. Um, and how was the Monk Institute for you? And being in LA, I know it's a different culture out here.
Yeah. Um, it was an adjustment for that, for just being in LA and, not having all the excitement of what was happening. But the thing that became clear to me was that almost kind of like the quarantine, it was not something that in any way I wanted, but it was something that, because it was happening, I really needed it, and I got what I needed out of it. And to our earlier conversation about composition, that was a time where I could just write for that group and write stuff every day and have it played and ask all the questions from anyone that came in, including Terrence, who was there, about composition. And it was, other one of those things, like, the Berklee ensemble rehearsals, like
Mm-hmm.
at night, how I didn't even realize it, but I went from here to here with composition. I mean, it sounds funny to say I grew a lot because I wasn't very good by the time I left, but from where I started,
Mm-hmm.
it was like night and day. So it gave me a lot towards that. That was my main takeaway from the institute, was that experience of writing and having it played and starting to learn what worked, starting to develop some ideas towards composition.
Yeah. And what years were you in LA?
I moved there in 2005, and then I just left in 2019.
Okay.
So
Yeah, so when you're studying there, even then there was like still, you maybe could see like music once a night. Like something might have been
yeah,
happening. But like you said, it is kind of like being in quarantine, so you just focus and you practice and you've got this amazing band you can play with. So,
yeah. And then I mean, I I was trying to get out too. I met all the people around town and started doing some gigs too. And it was at first it was just, just like what you're saying, how people think of LA, how they pick it in comparison to New York. It felt like drinking Pepsi instead of Coke, like, okay, that kind of thing. And then once I got over my own thing about it, which happened pretty quickly for me, it also, I think it was like one of the best things that could happen for me, because I just stopped like idolizing
mm,
the New York experience in that way, and it was just like music, and it was like, it doesn't matter if someone's on Blue Note as to whether they can play or not. I'm actually just making my own decisions about, oh my God, this is incredible. And no, I don't care if
who
anyone knows who
cares?
this. Yeah, it's incredible. And that was an experience that I think I had in LA. And it happened pretty quickly, like I mentioned, within those first 3 months. I think Josh Nelson was somebody that really opened my eyes to that. I was like, wow, who is this guy? Like, what records are you on that I
Yeah.
would know? It was like that whole interrogation thing, and then it was just like, oh, okay, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, you have that
Yeah,
self-referral. You feel good and then
yeah,
you can go run on the beach in the sunshine.
exactly.
Yeah. It's a, you know.
Smell the smog. It's perfect.
Yeah, my 9-year-old niece, I was on the phone with her the other day. She lives in New York. She's like, "You know why I would never move to Los Angeles?" And I said, "Why?" "It has so much pollution." I said, "Touche."
Yeah, touche indeed.
Yeah. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I have interesting questions. No. Um, so yeah, you're in LA, and then you started teaching, and lots of things happened in between that. But you went to Indiana first. What was like your first teaching position?
So coming out of the institute, I started going on the road a lot. But one of the last things we did right before the institute ended was to do a workshop at the LA County School of the Arts. And I remember talking with, at the time, Jason Goldman was there, and he was like, we might need somebody for next year. Are you staying in LA? What's your plan? I was like, yeah, I'll be here. Let me know. And just kind of that little conversation, it was enough. I guess I was going to be home enough where it worked to be
Mm-hmm.
able to do that. So I started there. I guess that was 2007, and also started at the Cal State LA campus, teaching the improv class. And I did that kind of sporadically, but I did the art school for a while, like till 2014.
Mm.
Just, I'd be in and out. And when I was there, it was cool. Everything worked. There was no problem with subbing stuff out
Yeah.
and being in and out. And the students were incredible. And I feel like I got a lot of practice towards all the stuff I'd done in school, doing it there. And I was kind of free to do whatever.
Yeah.
So that made it fun. It took like a year or year and a half to kind of get like a idea of what would work really well. So I was grateful for that situation, to have that kind of freedom to do it. But so I was doing that for a while, and you know, I got lucky where I was just playing so much. It
Yeah.
was that was what my career was. I was just like playing all the time, and the teaching opportunities were there. I was doing it regularly, but that wasn't like my job. It wasn't my income. And then, you know, I remember again having a conversation with my wife, Kate, and we were talking about, you know, future plans. And I was like, yeah, you know, I would like to at some point, you know, like maybe when I'm 50 or whatever that, you know, far off age is, you know, get back into like have a position somewhere. I think it would be really cool. And she's like, well, how do you know that you would even like it? Like you haven't ever done it like in a way where you're just going to commit to being there and do it. You might hate it. And then you've like waited all this time and you're hearing that, and then you don't want to do it. Of course, thinking wisely and ahead, as she always does. So then it kind of, I started thinking about it. I was like, wow, maybe I would hate it. I don't know. And then I started looking at other people that were in positions and wondering if I could actually do it and all that kind of stuff. So I applied to a couple places, and Indiana was the one that, you know, when you start looking at positions, it's funny because I don't know if you've ever looked at them, but they will be so, it's like if they found the person they were looking for, it would be like the most amazing person in the world, like the Renaissance person, like teach high level lessons on classical and jazz, and also our advanced piano class, teach the history of rock, sing in the blues choir. It's like every kind of thing. But this Indiana position was like exactly like the stuff that I feel strongly about. Like it was like teaching improvisation, and high level ensembles, and, you know, private instruction. And so that one ended up working out. And I did commute there for 3 years. So I had an apartment in Indiana. I would fly there for a couple days, and, you know, like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning, and then I would fly out to go do something. Maybe I'd be gone for 7, 8 days, maybe just a couple days, then go back and teach, and then I'd go home and then come back and all this. So basically the point of doing it was to see, you know, is this something I actually want to do? I loved it. But then it became a thing, well, if you're going to do this, shouldn't you also be able to be home? And living in Indiana wasn't necessarily something that my family was interested in doing. So that became something to look at, like, well, what does this look like long term? And the only place we'd ever looked at other than LA at that point was Boston. And it was just kind of all these things fell into place where this position that I'm in now kind of came up, and it all worked out. And it was still a big decision because it's LA, you know. It's kind of perfect in that way. But this was a great opportunity, and it felt like a natural progression from what I was doing and what I want to do in the education space. I hate saying the education space. That was pretty interesting.
That was very
can't
academic.
believe that came out of my mouth. You know, but you know what I like. This was like the next thing that made sense to do. So here we are in Boston now. This is my second here.
Yeah.
So.
And because you're chair of the woodwind department.
Chair of woodwinds, yeah.
Wow. That's incredible. And I mean, we can go. We're on record, but do you enjoy working there?
Yeah, absolutely. It's incredible because see the difference between the last position where you're faculty, you have the freedom to kind of look at the courses you're teaching and kind of manipulate them as you see fit. So in terms of who you're going to focus on, and that's is what you're going to hold as important, will be very different than the next person that would teach that class. In this role, we can look at all classes and say, okay, so do we really need to have this is this even relevant anymore towards what most of our students are going to do? Well, even if it is, are there some better options? Could we be looking at other people to study? Are there other ways to do this? So you have a little more ability to affect things in a positive way towards change. And that I really like that part of this position.
Yeah. I like Berklee in general. There's a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. This might be my last question because this would be fun to do again. Oh, and I just go on record saying I love your records. I love your music. I mean, you've got that back up
Thank
there.
you.
Twio. I love Twio.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I should have covered that up. I'll rest like this.
Is that embarrassing?
Yes, that's the only thing I've ever put on the wall that's mine. But I liked because it's that 3-color thing. When they
Yeah.
sent it to me, I was like, okay, this is pretty cool.
And every day you
I
look at
wouldn't
it.
listen to it.
Yeah, you go.
No, only when I'm on Zoom.
Yeah. You
I
just pass
usually
by it.
sit over here
Yeah.
so that I'm blocking it. I'm trying to do it backwards. Anyway, but yeah, it's only there because of the colors of the vinyl. It's pretty cool.
Got it. Kind of speaking of that, last thing I'll kind of ask is where does your humor come from in the music and in general? Because it's palpable, it's feelable.
Yeah, well, I think all the people that I grew up with, whether it's Glasper, Kendrick, Mike, LeBron Thomas, of them are like some of the funniest people that you'll ever know. And I think just the way that humor is something that I value most in people, and it doesn't matter what version of it. It's the most important thing to me. So I find sometimes when people are too serious, almost doesn't even feel. It's almost like when I sit in the education space, like they're just doing something and they're trying to avoid connecting on level. And to me, it's just the most valuable thing. And I know that a lot of people talk about, like in music and all this stuff, you're supposed to use your personality towards what you do. That's how you're being honest in the music, right? And I think to try to not have that, even when things are serious, there's always an angle that you can find something funny. Whether it's appropriate or not is another conversation. But just trying to, be as much of myself as I can within the music, and that helps. It's everyone has something that Wayne has said to them before, but I remember him saying something about like your sound sounds like it's like a saxophone. I want to hear you, and like there's like a lot of levels that can come on, but come across through. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I think if how you are as a person is translated into your music in any way, that is maybe the most important thing that you can achieve, using some kind of inanimate object to kind of channel that feeling or that emotion or that energy. I think that's like an achievement. And not to say that I'm like super awesome, because it would also be great if I could play music well. But the being able to be funny on saxophone is a big thing for me.
Yeah, I could feel it, and now we can see it because of the videos you're posting that you're making and the arrangements are great. I love the arrangements, but they're hilarious.
Thank you. Yeah, really, really fun project through quarantine, but now it's come to an end, so something else will come out now. But yeah, it was a good time doing those.
Yeah, I think my favorite, well, I had a lot of favorites, but Shiny Stockings was great.
Yes, that was a good one. I remember with all the people that were guests on them, I would just send them the track and they would send it back to me, and I was like, all right, so I'll put video to this and send it right back to you, but for your approval.
Yeah.
And I remember Jeff Hamilton, I told him up front what I was thinking. I was like, I don't know if I'll be able to find enough images for this, but if I do, it'll be good. And he was down, so it worked out. But I didn't know if that was going to fly in the end.
Oh, it did. It flew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely flew.
Yeah. Well, cool, Walter. I'm good. I feel satisfied. I really appreciate you taking the time. It means a lot. And well, okay, last question. What's in the works? Anything happening?
Yeah, actually, I just got back from recording an album. We finished it this weekend. In Common, which is a project I've been doing with Matt Stevens. We just finished the third one, which I don't know when it'll be out, but it's pretty, I usually don't feel good about things that I've recorded, but on this one, there are some pretty cool stuff. Chris Davis is playing piano, Terri Lynn's playing drums, and Dave Holland played bass, and they had a thing. It was kind of cool.
Nice.
So I'm excited. I haven't heard the roughs yet, but my impression of it leaving the studio was, wow, this could be interesting. So we'll see. But that's the next thing that'll be out.
Well, wonderful. I can't wait for that to come out. Again, thanks, Walter. Really appreciate it. And yeah, thanks. That's all I could say.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
Pleasure.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.